One government agency consistently pops up right at the center of some of our most darkest and closely guarded secrets. Look who signed the check for the initial $200,000 payment to the Islamic Relief Agency. It is the United States Agency for International Development. Names sound benign. Does it sound familiar? Who are they? Well, from their own website, this is who they are. Quote, USAID leads international development and humanitarian efforts to save lives, reduce poverty, strengthen democratic governance, and help people progress beyond assistance. Well, that sounds good. Here's the former head of USAID on MSNBC describing what they try to do despite those evil Republican budget hawks that just want to reduce all foreign aid. Watch.
What about, the Republican budget cutters who don't want any foreign aid?
Well, our goal is really to achieve the outcomes the president's laid out. The president brought together world leaders at the G8 a few years ago and said, let's make serious efforts at ending widespread hunger and extreme rural poverty in the countries in which we work.
Wow, isn't that great? So they're feeding hungry people and lifting people out of poverty. That's great. However, the more you look into USAID, the more shocked you will become. The exact same time that interview was given on MSNBC, USAID was running a top-secret espionage program to undermine Cuba and push people to dissent. Now, if you're an interventionist, you might not see anything wrong with us trying to undermine the Cuban government. But doesn't espionage and inciting coups fall under the CIA, a legitimate intelligence agency that faces oversight by Congress and reports directly to the president? So why is USAID pursuing foreign policy? The 2-year project set up a communications network that created a Cuban Twitter called Zunzino. To hide their involvement, USAID used secret shell companies financed through foreign banks. Do you remember Alan Gross, the American citizen that was imprisoned in Cuba for espionage? Well, he was working for USAID, setting the groundwork for the Cuban Twitter project. So let's put that another way. A bureaucratic agency used a private U.S. citizen to work for them as a spy, and all to chase their own foreign policy. But it gets darker and darker as we look. USAID has also been doing these things since the Cold War. I want to show you an article from the New York Times in 1979 called Torture's Teachers. It highlights a man named Dan Militrone. He and his involvement in USAID programs is pretty infamous. One of them is called the Office of Public Safety. Sounds nice. The Office of Public Safety was set up in the late 1950s, however, to help train friendly foreign police forces to be, more democratic and less corrupt. While that was the official purpose, Dan was setting up secret torture houses where he was teaching South American police forces how to properly apply electrodes to victims' genitals. I told you this gets dark, but we're just getting started. Between 1996 and 2000, over 200,000 Peruvians were found to have been victims of forced sterilization. Forced. The program was designed and monitored at the highest echelons of the Peruvian government. Well, over 30 women died during the program, and many more were scarred for life. You'll never guess how the program was sold to the people. See if this sounds familiar. For the, quote, empowerment of young women and family planning. Ask any of the women who were forcibly sterilized and scarred for life how empowered they feel, because you certainly can't ask the 30 that died. Think about this the next time you see a commercial for The Handmaid's Tale, and you'll never guess who is right there, smack dab in the middle of this project. USAID. They donated $35 million to this Nazi-esque eugenics program. USAID, your tax dollars, tentacles that stretch all over the globe. They spend $390 million annually on, quote, democracy promotion in the Middle East. What is that? Well, I will tell you that included training of up to 10,000 Egyptians in social activism and the use of social media. coincidentally or not, right as the Arab Spring came to Egypt. Huh. They were also just caught funding George Soros groups with millions of dollars with the goal of destabilizing Macedonia's government. We all saw how well the Arab Spring worked out. Do we now want to see them do the same thing in Eastern Europe? These are the fruits of a bloated and out of control expanding government. We have a bureaucratic entity under the guise of foreign aid actually operating as an intelligence or espionage agency. And all of that is being done without oversight given to a real intelligence agency. All of that done without your mandate, possibly without even the knowledge of your elected officials. So how is it this has gone on for so long? How is it that these stories barely get a whisper in the media? It's time we put an end to this before our country loses what's left of its soul. Jason is our chief researcher and head writer. You've followed this story now since last week. Is there anybody, Jason, that is looking to expose this?
I've been looking at this actually a little bit longer. They first popped up on my radar when I saw the Macedonia George Soros thing. Kind of put it on my mind, and I saw it again recently, and I was like, what is up with these people? It does not seem like anyone has really have them in check. I know they have their own Office of Inspector General, but that kind of, I'm not trusting that. They definitely don't have the oversight that, say, the CIA does or anything like that, but they're not supposed to be an intelligence agency, but they operate like they do. I don't know how these stories completely go on the wayside. These should be all over the place. It's almost like they have, the Men in Black flashy thing and make people forget they happen.